You better be fired up today. It is the Go Earn It podcast. I'm Shane Sparks. This is episode number 25, part one, with Jon Reader from Davison, Michigan, three-time Michigan State champion. Went on to Iowa State, of course. He was phenomenal in that Cyclone singlets, three-time All-American, won that 2011 national title. Jon, you and I got a pretty good lather in already, talking about 10 minutes before we came on, some really good stuff. And I told you what your first question was going to be, because this is like a wrestling match. I'm all over the place. I know what Jon Reader, my hand fight better be good. I know what Jon Reader, I better not compromise position. I know what Jon Reader, I better have a lot of pace. And I know what Jon Reader, before I toe the line, I better have a lot of positive thoughts in my mind, because I'm willing to go to hell and back, Jon, 2 or 3 times over the next 7-minute match to beat you. But I'm going to reverse course right away. We'll get to that plan first question in a little bit. I want to talk about 2011 out of the gate, because when I go to 2011, that was the first final I was able to call then on live sports radio. But that iconic picture of you in the head wrap. When I think of head wraps, I'm thinking about Dan Gable in 1972. I'm thinking about Jordan Burroughs when he won that world title. I believe that was 2017. I could be wrong, but he had that head wrap. But I think maybe number one, 2011 Jon Reader. Where's the head wrap? Whatever happened to the head wrap?
Man, the head wrap went flying off the mat after I was done wrestling. But first and foremost, Shane, I'm so grateful to be here with the voice of wrestling. Like you said, the first 10 minutes before this, we were fired up, and I wish we would have got those 10 minutes on camera. But yeah, 2011, man, just a representation that emotion that erupted out of me after I was done with that match. It was an epitome of everything that was coming out at the moment. You know, from a very young age, I wanted to be a national champion, and I had worked my whole career for that moment. And in that couple of seconds when I flexed and the blood was rolling and the wrap was there, you know, it's a really cool. I'm grateful to have that picture now to be able to reflect on and show my kids. And it was just a representation of who I am and just wearing my emotions on my sleeve. I wasn't that celebration kind of guy, but in that moment, I let it fly. And, you know, I'm grateful that they were able to capture that.
Where do you have that picture? Where does it hang?
You know what? I've got it down in the basement now. You know, I used to have it up in the house, but it's down in the basement collecting dust. But man, I'm just grateful to have it. Very, very grateful to have it. It was definitely the pinnacle of my career. And to be honest with you, Shane, walking out, now picture this. You're in the tunnel. You're about to walk out in front of 40,000 people in the biggest match of your entire career, right? It was my last college match. And, you know, you would think they would have nerves, you know, and I was the most confident I had ever been in my entire career, believe it or not. I knew that I was willing to die. I was willing to do whatever it took to get my hand raised in that match. And it really, when the whistle was blew and everything was settled and my hand got raised, that was the emotion that came out of me. I was not going to be denied. I was very well prepared with Coach Kevin Jackson. And the dream of from a young boy, I remember when I had my aha moment of wanting to be a national champion. And from that moment until when it happened, that emotion was bottled up. And when it came out, it freaking burst. And
when was your aha moment, Jon? When was the aha moment for you?
I remember it was 1997. I was watching the NCAA tournament with my father on TV and seeing that moment. And he looked at me and said, and I told my dad, I was like, I want to do that someday. I saw the raw emotion of those wrestlers, the Doug Schwabs, the Chris Bonos, the Joe Heskets, the Cale Sandersons, all those guys that I was watching and idolizing growing up. I turned to my dad and I said, I want to do that someday. And he said, listen, you can do anything you ever want to dream of. It's going to take a lot of hard work, but I will give you every opportunity to get there one day. And I'm telling you, it gives me goosebumps saying that right now, but it came to fruition. And no matter what, the older I get and I look back on my career, damn right, I am so grateful for the opportunities I had, but it would not have happened without my mom and dad and the support of my parents. And that is just who my parents were. They were literally, they would do anything for their kids to have the opportunities to, like I had, you know, they were very, very unselfish, right? In everything that they did to give us the opportunities to get where we wanted to go.
Growing up, Jon, from Davison, Michigan, of course, that's a powerhouse. I mean, wrestling is in the fabric of that community. of course, with legendary Coach Hall. When you look back at your parents, because it starts at home, and now you're an adult, you have kids of your own, you have your own family, what are a couple of things that they did? Because in my opinion, John, unfortunately, I think youth sports is a little bit broken. So when you look back on your childhood, what is a thing or two that your parents did for you that now that you're older, you're going, wow, that was really critical?
I'm telling you, they sacrificed their own lives and their own personal lives on weekends to take us across the country to get in front of better coaches, to get into the best competitions. Literally every Saturday and Sunday that I can remember from youth, I was all over the country getting access to different training and partners. And we are a very, very blue collar family, and they had to, they had to find ends meet to make those opportunities happen. Very easily they could have said, you know what, we're going to stay here local. But it was whatever it took to give us a better opportunity that they had as kids. And I'm forever grateful from what my parents did, because I wouldn't be the man I am today had it not been for the tireless just work ethic and what they did for me and my siblings. 100%. It's all, everything I have in my life was, I was giving it to it from my parents, man, right from day one.
During your career and in your adult life, and your entire life for that matter, what's a conversation that was most impactful that you had with your dad?
Oh,
anything.
Just, you know what? I think far, even outside of wrestling, I just knew that my parents loved me and they believed in me and they were proud of me no matter what. I wasn't coming off the mat. And trust me, this sport, the thing I love about this sport, win or lose, man, it's a one-on-one sport, right? And I understood that. That's what drew me to this sport. My dad was a Division I football player at Indiana State. He was at Indiana State with Bruce Baumgartner when he was on the wrestling team. Larry Bird was on the basketball team. My mom played softball, so they were both Division I athletes. They understood the demand that you were going to have to what it took to be at the next level. So I understood that from a very young age, that if I wanted to take this to the next level, it would take a massive amount of work and understanding that nothing was given, everything was earned. And I just think that my parents understood that, and they were giving me and my brother that's older and my sister that was younger than me every opportunity to be exposed to the best of the best and the best of the best opportunities, whether it's competition or coaching.
2011, you're in that tunnel getting ready to wrestle Nikamucha Staggy. He was a hammer from Stanford. I mean, he was
sure was.
Joke. He was a stud. When you were sitting in that tunnel getting ready to make that run down the carpet, what music played? Did you get to select your song back in 20?
No, I'm actually kind of ticked off about that, because I never got an option to play a song. It probably would have been something really heavy metal or something to get me fired up. That's kind of who I am. I'm a high sprung, high intense guy. But I never got that option. I don't even know. And to be honest with you, when I get in the zone, man, I don't hear anything. I am one track. I am on a mission to go. So I don't even know if I would have heard anything. But to be honest with you, I'm telling you, I can remember, I can smell, see, I visually could see that moment over in my head like it was yesterday. Because if I go back in time, I spent, and I could preface this for a long ways, but I had 3 different head coaches in college, right? A lot of student athletes don't have that experience. Over 5 years, I had 3 different head coaches and along with their staffs. But fast forward, when Coach Jackson came in as at my junior year, one thing that he implemented with me, and it's something that I truly needed at the right time, and I think there's a lot of power behind it, is the power of visualization. And something that he did every single day, whether it was laying down on the mat and he would walk me through a match, or whether it was a bike sprint, or whatever it was, he was constantly surrounding me with visualization. And I was constantly being put in a situation where I was visualizing myself walk out onto the NCAA finals mat, where I would see myself executing offense, where I would see myself overcoming adversity, where I would see myself getting my hand raised. He had me even walking around the wrestling room visualizing my celebration after I was done. So Shane, so you fast forward 12 months later, and I'm in that situation. I truly believe the confidence that I had in me walking out, and now reflecting, and honestly, I can say that was the most confident I've ever been. It all came from the work I put in 12 months before right here. And when I stepped out onto that mat, I'm telling you, I had already been there a million times. I had already beat him a million times. I had already gotten my hand raised a million times. So that's something that I now take into my own coaching career and really emphasize to our student athletes about the power of your mind and just how powerful it truly can be. I mean, the old saying, right? The old quote is, whether you think you can or you can't, you know, if you think you can, you can.
That was going to be my first question, of course. We talked about that before we started to hit record. You're a guy on Twitter. I love to follow you on Twitter because it just puts me in a good mood, because mindset is everything. I mean,
yeah,
brainwash yourself, whatever it is. Who cares how you get there, but get there. And I love your quotes. You have so many great quotes. I want to know your top 2 or 3.
Man, I'll give you my one, and that's really the emphasis and foundation of everything I attack every single day with. And it's very simple. It's win the day. But everything that comes with that, that's how I treat people. That's the type of coworker or how I treat my spouse. It's, Shane, I'm trying to impact every single person that I come in contact with, whether it's very subtle, whether it's in passing. I'm trying to make an impact in a positive way on everybody that I come in contact with. That's just who I am. I'm drawn to that. And I really believe that, you know, think about the power. If 20 of us all had that kind of mindset, how powerful that can be, and especially in the world that we're in with the things that kids go through nowadays. And it's, you know, you never know people that you come in contact with or in passing, what they're going for, or what they're going through, what season of life they're going through. And if I can make one small impact on somebody and let them know that I believe in them, that I'm proud of them, that, hey, what's going on? How's your day going? Let me hold the door for you. Man, that's what I'm here for. I'm here as a coach at the University of Wisconsin to make young men better young men, and for them to accomplish their goals and to win at the highest level and do it with a ton of integrity.
Win the day. Where did that come from?
I think that's, you know, I don't know. I kind of just started running with it, and it became like, you know, a breakdown in the after practice. And then all of a sudden, you know, I've got a group of, you know, you talk about impacting people. You know, I've been here now, this will be my 6th year at the University of Wisconsin. Every Wednesday I have a group of 50 to 60 athletic department people that I run the stadium with. And I put that together because I want to impact people far beyond wrestling. I want to impact people that are a part of this athletic department, where I can just come here and go to work and just do wrestling and that'd be it. That's not who I am, though. I want that impact to be on another level. So, you know, I give them to win the day, and it's just trying to uplift people, man. In a world that wants to break you down, I'm here to build you up.
What coach within the athletic department is the best at the stadium stairs?
Luke Fickle, head coach.
I was just going to ask you about Coach Fickle.
He's an absolute workhorse. He's an animal, and it's someone that you know, cut from the same kind of cloth. Very, very positive, impactful, and wants to motivate you to be a better version of yourself. And that's why, you know, I was like, as soon as he got on staff, it was, you know, we're like 2 peas in a pod now.
That is awesome. 2011, when you win it, you're on top of that podium holding the chart. You hear, might have been Sandy Stevens, perhaps at that time.
It sure was.
You know, you're national champion at 174 pounds from Iowa State University, Jon Reader. Do you remember those moments?
Yeah, and you know what? You would think about. I remember it like it was yesterday. It kind of gives me, you know, like I'm about to. It touches home, man. It makes you almost want to go in tears. I remember that moment. Like, I was so proud. And if you ever been to an NCAA tournament and you were actually there to see the award ceremony, they have you face the middle or the center of the arena, and you're on the podium. And then when they turn you around, man, it gives me goosebumps. My parents were right there. And that was the first thing I wanted to do, was get off that podium and give them a hug, because I owed everything. I owed everything to them. You know, it's honestly, I'm 36 years old now. I've been wrestling since I was 6 years old. And these 30 years of wrestling have been the best experience I possibly have. But I would never have been exposed to the sport had it not been for my parents. And I'm just truly grateful. And you would think that in that moment, you would want to do so many other things. But I couldn't wait to get off that podium and hug my parents. and just to let them know how grateful I am that for everything, every sacrifice that they ever had. My parents never missed one wrestling match in college. And you know the logistics of college wrestling when you're on one coast to the other coast to the other here. And my parents work full-time jobs, and it was and also having other kids to make sure that they're managing as well. And my parents never missed one match. They wanted to be a part of that experience, and they didn't sacrifice. They wouldn't sacrifice not missing it. They were there, everything.
I know you've been asked this question a lot, but Davison, Michigan. I mean, so many hammers have come out of Davison, Michigan. Tell me something about that program that you haven't talked about before.
Well, I think there's so much to talk about. I think that people don't understand how lucky we really were. And I think that looking back now, when I saw Brent at the US Open in Vegas, and just talking and reminiscing about our times at Davison, and just how lucky we are. And now as being coaches and having to obviously recruit countrywide and see the opportunities that some have and some don't have, man, it really makes you look back on what we had as high school kids and be like, holy cow, man, what we had 2 Division I college athletes that were our coaches. Like they were former Division I athletes that literally they got us up before school started. We were running, we were lifting. And when school was done, we had college level practices or college level structured practices where we were held accountable, and we were competing across the country against the best competition. I'm telling you, Shane, what we had from high school, it was a seamless transition for me, and it prepared me at a high level to walk from high school into college. I was ready the second I stepped on campus. Now the level of competition gets much, much higher, but what I was chasing, what I was looking for in college, it was all seamless because I had it in high school. It was like walking into another, program just led by different coaches.
And you won 3 state titles, correct?
Correct. 3 state titles. Yep.
What year did you not win?
I did not win as a freshman. So you can imagine me. My dad's 6'6". He's a big guy. My mom played softball in college, so she's a little shorter. But I hit a big growth spurt my freshman year. I was 112 pounds as a freshman, and I didn't weigh 112 pounds. I was wrestling up because we had a really good Paul Donahoe, as you probably know, was a national champ at Nebraska. He was our 103 pounder. So I was going 112. I was a freshman. He was a junior. I was just a baby. I was 110 pounds soaking wet. But when I started to get towards the end of the season, I started hitting a growth spurt, and it was a struggle to get to 112, but made it happen. I ended up third as a freshman, and then ended up winning sophomore, junior, senior.
So taking third as a freshman, John, love third place. And I want to start this, and I really do. At the national tournaments, the champions get the picture together, and that's great. I want to get a picture with the guys that take third, because I just think there is so much honor, regardless of, in this case, you being in high school, especially when I think about those college kids, maybe that number 1 seed that gets beat in the semifinals, to get it together. I have no idea. I'm just trying to comprehend in my mind how hard it must be. Describe to me, John, the honor of getting the next best thing and finding a way to finish third.
Absolutely. And I think you hit it on the nail. I think that's a great idea. I think we should get a picture of all the third placers. I think that there's an immense amount of grit, and just, it's a reflection of life, right? It really is. When you get knocked down, you have a choice to stay down or keep getting back up and keep moving forward. And I think those guys that come back and get third, what an accomplishment, where they could have just kept their head down and gave in. And I think that's a true reflection of a lot of what they have within. And that's hard to teach, brother. That's hard to teach. I'm telling you, you can preach that for years and years and years, but that's something that is built within. And no doubt about it, those guys that come back in third, what an accomplishment, especially some of those guys that you see over the years that lose first round at the NCAAs, and they rattle off 8-9 wins to get third place.
What do you remember from winning your first state title?
Oh, I mean, it was a first, right? I just remember the immense amount of like, let's go. This is that it's time to start rolling on people. And I was starting to get to a level where I knew that this is what I wanted to do in college. And I played Pop Warner Sports, and I'm a big believer in that. And I know some are against that, but I know what I do with my own kids now. I want them exposed to every sport, and that's how my parents were. But as we got down the road, I think about my sophomore year, I kind of identified, hey, I'm getting pretty darn good at this, and I'm starting to really, really like where this is going, and I'm starting to see the attraction from coaches. I'm starting to see kind of where my Division I coaches that were my high school coaches are kind of projecting and where this can go, and they've roadmapped it all out. As a sophomore, I was like, hey, this is what I want to start doing. So I really dialed in and went 2 feet in and started wrestling full time there, because I really wasn't a full time wrestler until about my sophomore year in high school. I was wrestling, at all the national level tournaments, but I was still playing other sports. And that's when I went 2 feet in and it took off.
What weights did you win him at in high school?
I went 112 as a freshman place, and I went 135, 152, 160.
Wow. So you're putting some weight on over the
I put some weight on. Yeah. And I actually really, it was my 160, my senior year was probably the last, that was what I was cutting weight to, but it gradually got bigger and bigger and bigger. But like I told you, I didn't hit my dad's growth spurt. My dad's 6'6", 285, 300 pounds. And, he was a lineman in college. So I think he wanted me to secretly, he wanted me to be a football player deep down. I just didn't have it.
What was your most memorable high school match?
Most memorable high school match. Wow, I've got a lot of great experiences as a team, and one of the greatest moments that we had as a team. So obviously Davidson powerhouse program, we rattled off 8 to 10 team state titles in a row, right? And Coach Roy Hall is a legendary coach and has done a phenomenal job. Well, we got to my senior year when a lot of those guys above me had graduated and went on to college, with Brett Metcalf and Paul Donahoe and my brother and Brent's older brother Chase Metcalf. They had all gone, so we were a very, very young and rebuilding program. And we had a good group in my class of leaders. And what we did was, I was going 160 for the individual tournament. Well, we decided before the team tournament that was 2 weeks prior to the individuals, with the whole weight descent, we were able to go down a weight class. So when we walked into the team state championships, nobody knew that our weight class, our whole lineup had moved and shifted down a weight class. And it was going to give us a better opportunity to make a run. And we got to the team state finals as my senior. And we all had this thing, like, we are not going to be the class that it stops on. We were going to do anything in our power to continue that tradition. And we weren't going to be like, in history books saying, hey, this was the class that dropped the ball. So we got to the team state championships. We all shifted down a weight class. We walked to the weigh-ins, and I remember like it was yesterday, all the coaches that were in there with their other teams, and they all were just jaws had hit the ground, that all of us had bumped down a weight class, and we all sacrificed knowing that this was coming. And we got it done, man. We came to the state finals and got it done. I think we won on the last match. And you know how those dual meets in high school, some of those might be determined by probably your less experienced guy, like the way it all got shifted out and who matched up with who. It was like a guy that was a 20% winning percentage versus their 20% winning percentage. And it was just the power of, it was amazing. And to see both crowds and my parents and all the parents that we had grown up, to this moment, we carried it out. We ended up getting a state title. It was just one of my better moments, but it was about the team and what we accomplished together as a group when we put our heads together and we sacrificed together. It wasn't a selfish thing. It was a very unselfish commitment to each other. Like, hey, I very easily could have just stayed at 160 and said, forget it. I'm worried about the individual state tournament in 2 weeks. But I made that decision because of the people that were around me in that program and how much I loved my coaches. And I was willing to do anything for that program.
You won 3 individual state titles. You were part of 4 team titles at Davidson. I mean, you did a lot of winning. And I've said this, John, regardless of sport, there is a difference between a team and a program. Davidson, Michigan was a wrestling program. So many things have to be executed to have that kind of success. But what are a couple of things that maybe go under the radar that were just so instrumental in making that program the powerhouse it was?
Well, I think first and foremost, in any great program, any great company, it starts with the leadership. It really, truly does. Everything trickles down from the leaders. And it was our coaches, they invested in the relationships with their athletes, and they truly cared about us, and they held us accountable, which was very important. It was something that we all wanted, right? That willingness to lean into when things got uncomfortable and those decisions had to be made. We were all held accountable to the standard of the program. And our kind of motto, our saying at Davidson, and something you probably saw on t-shirts was, never settle, break somebody. That was our motto. Never settle, right? We're never going to settle for anything. We were always going to, try to out hustle, outwork, high effort kind of program. But we were held to that standard from day in and day out. It didn't matter who you were, but it didn't matter if you were Brent Metcalf. It didn't matter if you were Paul Donahoe. It didn't matter if you were all, and trust me, there was 20 to 30 other guys in that room that were just as good, that didn't go on to have as good as college careers. But we were held to a standard every single day. And that's something that I craved. I wanted that. That's why I was in that program. I was attracted to the structure, the energy, the passion, just the relentless pursuit of trying to be a better version of ourselves. And once we got to be pretty good as a team, we were ranked as high as number 2 or number 3 in the country, and our coaches just, again, they were unselfish themselves. They were very, very committed as high school coaches that weren't making probably $1,200, $1,000, $2,000, whatever it was. You know how high school coaches are very underpaid. These guys were like extensions of my family, like truly. That's how we looked at it. And it was very, so even to fast forward, when I got into college, that's really what I wanted in a program. I mean, Roy Hall had that Davidson program feared. And it was amazing to be a part of it, right? And when we would walk into arenas, the Kellogg Arena in Battle Creek, Michigan, to go to the team state championship, we were feared. When we walked in, it was feared. I remember I vision this. Brent Metcalf was more of a skater boy in high school a little bit, right? He used to skateboard and he used to have his boom box. I was a class behind him, so I was always like, hey, I'm doing whatever he's doing too. So we would walk into the Battle Creek, Kellogg Arena to the team state championships, and we would have this boom box, and we would walk into the place, and everybody would pause. Everybody would look at. It was like that team was feared. And when we walked into an arena, it was like, hey, they're here, and they're here to get after it.
What's your favorite Roy Hall story?
Oh, I got so many. I just am incredibly grateful for everything that he's ever done for me. When a lot of people may have doubted me in my career, he was always, regardless whether it was my own high school career or whether it was far beyond in my college career, he was always right there to say, listen, I believe in you. You can do this. You can do this. But one personality thing that he had was he was very forgetful. He'd always lose his keys, lose his phone, lose this, lose that. So it was always kind of a running joke for him. Where's my keys? Where's my phone? He was just kind of kind of all over the place. Very, very high energy. Very, very high energy. But man, just again, you look back and you reflect on your career. He was definitely a pivotal moment in my own personal career. And I remember, again, you have those aha moments when you're coming up. Like one being that moment where I told my father, and I looked at him in the eye and I said, I want to do this. And then again, probably the really strong one after that was, I remember as an 8th grader, Roy Hall was my middle school PE teacher. And so as a middle school PE teacher, naturally he's obviously my high school coach, or would go on to be my high school coach. He told me as a middle school wrestler, he's like, you're going to the high school with me right after school is done. I'm like, okay, I'm going with you. And then you're going to sit down on the wall and you're going to watch these guys practice. And I was an 8th grader, right? And I was here. My goal, my brother was already in the Davidson program, but I remember sitting there and watching Chase Metcalf, who was ranked number 1 in the country, Brent Metcalf, Paul Donahoe, who ends up going to be a national champ, and many others in there. And I'm like, this is amazing. I want to do this. I want to do this. And at that time, Chase was a little bit older than all of us. I think he's 4 years older than me. So he was getting heavily recruited at the time. He was ranked number 1 in the country. He had just won senior nationals. He beat Darryl Vasquez, who was the first 4-time California state champion. So we had the number 1 guy in the country, pound for pound, in our room. And I watched his everyday habits. I watched everything about him. I was a wrestling junkie. And I was watching how Chase Metcalf carried himself. I'm like, he got a full ride scholarship to Michigan. I said, you know, I watched everything about him. I said, I want to do this. I want to do what he's doing. I want to go to a program and I want to wrestle at the highest level. And I'm telling you, those experiences, a lot of kids don't have those. A lot of kids don't have that kind of like, wow, this is another. I was in a room at another level the moment I stepped foot into that program as a freshman. But again, Coach Hall, he fueled that passion. He fueled that passion and surrounded me with people that were like-minded like that. And, you know, the history books, you look back on it, you had 3 national champs all on the same high school program at one time. It's just a reflection of him. But I would be remiss if I told you, you know, it wasn't just Roy. It was also Kent Elliott, who I've got an immense amount of respect for. And some of that really I had a strong relationship with. He was actual college roommates at LSU before they dropped the program with Kevin Jackson. So in a small world, fast forward, you know, I'm with KJ down the road as his athlete at Iowa State. Him and Kevin Jackson were college roommates at LSU, and they were at each other's weddings. So it's just a weird, small world. But again, a high-level guy who knew what it was going to take at the next level.
At the national tournaments a couple months ago, was doing something with Bill Zadek, and he had a great line. And he said, you know, nobody can drag you to the top of the podium. And in this conversation with you, Jon, it's pretty evident. Nobody was dragging you to do much. You loved it, the passion. You felt like you were built for this. You worked hard. You had the success. Like, what is it about this sport that you just loved?
Oh, I mean, it was from the get-go. I started out in T-ball. I started out in Pop Warner football. But when I got exposed to wrestling and I first put my shoes on and I got my hands on somebody, obviously I was very unskilled, right? But it was just the freedom of it's me versus whoever I'm wrestling. It's how much time do I want to invest in this personally? It's me. It's on me. I have 100% control over this. I'm not depending on anybody else. And I was really, really drawn towards that. And I had success from a young age. So that fueled it, right? That fueled that passion and it kind of snowballed. But again, there was it took a village to continue to pour in and invest in me and give me opportunities. And, you know, I'm very blessed for that, because I also see now far down the road for me, I see kids that aren't fortunate with those opportunities. And man, it just makes me very, very, very grateful that I had that.
Jon, this has been a lot of fun. This has been part 1. We're coming back for part 2. This is
that was quick, brother. That was too quick.
It was part 2. Stick around. Part 2 with Jon Reader.